Do you love 80s and 90s action movies? For me, Die Hard is my jam. I keep telling myself that someday I'm going to run a tense, high-octane one-shot based on terrorists taking hostages in a fantasy version of the Nakatomi Plaza. Someday. Anyway, on this day, I want to talk about the newest Dimension 20 actual play show, Never Stop Blowing Up. It should be pretty obvious from the title what this show is about, and we're going to grab onto GMing and role-playing lessons we can learn from it. There will be some spoilers from the first couple episodes of the show, nothing serious though, I promise. But first, let me give you a quick summary of the premise. Despite all the high-action trailers, the show begins by following 6 hapless characters who are all tied in some way to a failing video rental store. The store is days away from becoming financially insolvent, but there's a big switcheroo at the end of the first episode when our 6 PCs enter an action movie world and then play as different characters, sort of. I don't want to say any more than that to avoid ruining too much of the fun. But it's basically a fish out of water story with all the tropes of adrenaline-fueled action movies. Speed, Mission Impossible, John Wick, Taken, Bourne Identity, Fast and Furious. The actual game mechanics are built on a homebrewed version of Kids on Bikes, which they have used before in the D20 Dome. But I really like some of their adjustments here. In Kids on Bikes, you assign different die sizes to your different skills, so you have a higher chance of meeting DCs using your larger dice, obviously. But in Never Stop Blowing Up, they add in this sort of roll for shoes type mechanic where everyone starts at a D4 in all skills, and if you crit on any die, it blows up, naturally, and you can replace that skill's baseline with the next larger die from D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20, all the way to a D100. Seeing this blow up mechanic in action on the show is very fun. Everyone goes nuts. Especially when they blow up on a D4 by rolling a 4, then immediately after blow up on a D6 by rolling a 6, and then just like that, they're now rolling a D8 for that skill going forward. And what I really like about this, aside from how awesome it feels to blow up, is that it kind of replicates the Skyrim feeling of getting better at skills the more you use them. Which makes sense, right? If I sneak a lot, I should get better at sneaking, but there's still some randomness to it because I only crit once every 4 or 6 or 10 times depending on the die size. And also, the scaling dice means it gets harder to blow up with each newer die. That replicates the feeling of mastery in a skill being hard to attain, but also makes it more special when it happens. You've got a 25% chance to blow up on a D4, but only an 8% chance to blow up on a D12. And they also use the Kids on Bikes rule of taking half, which means as long as you're not in a high pressure situation, you could just take half of the maximum die roll as your result. So if you've got a D8, instead of rolling, you can just declare that you've got a 4, or a 6 for a D12, or a 10 for a D20. This also represents developing competence in a particular ability. Real quick, could I get a like and subscribe below? It only takes a second and it helps us both out. Make sure to click all next to notifications. Also, click the join button to get exclusive perks when you join my channel. Now let's talk about some of the GMing and role-playing lessons we can glean from how Brennan runs the game and how his players play it. First, Brennan introduces game mechanics without explicitly telling players what they mean or how they function. In doing this, they, and us as the audience, are left to puzzle them out, adding to the tension of scenes. In episode 1, Brennan hands out a prop to everyone. Dynamite for Iffy, a floppy disk for Reika, keycard for Allie. And each player has a console with a green light in front of them, and when certain narrative consequences happen, Brennan takes away their props. And when he does this, the green light changes to red. He doesn't say why this light change happens or what it signifies. A similar thing happened in the Mentopolis season of D20, when the entire middle of the table was taken up by a device like a roulette wheel. For several episodes, it sat dormant, and Brennan didn't explain it. Then, in a later episode, he starts moving the roulette wheel to a different setting, and he still doesn't say right away what this means. The players have to figure it out through context. If you want to do something like this with your players, go buy a set of hourglass timers. Then when your players enter a room in a dungeon, you say, from somewhere in the room you hear a faraway ticking sound. Then throw down a 10-minute hourglass timer in front of them and watch how they start to freak out. What's the timer for? Is there an arcane bomb? Is the chamber about to flood? Are monsters coming in 10 minutes? What does it mean? Oh man, it's fun. Running out of time is always a great motivator and a way to continually escalate tension. I'll put a link in the description below to a set of timers that I like. Another lesson from the show is to let the players push the narrative where they want it to go, but find ways to interject your story beats. In one episode, Greg Stocks, as played by Jason... why do I keep doing that? In one episode, Greg Stocks, as played by Jacob Wysocki, becomes despondent. He feels like the team has let him down. So, to blow off some steam, he goes to a hotel bar to try to get laid. And there he meets a European couple. They flirt and invite him back up to their room for a roll in the hay.
Hello. Would you like to have a roll in the hay? It's fun! Roll, roll, roll in the hay.
And right before the naughty business goes down, Brennan reveals that the swingers are actually assassins sent to kill Greg Stocks. Now, it's possible that Brennan improvised this whole scene in response to Jacob's actions, but I think it's likely Brennan already had these European assassins in his back pocket and was planning to introduce them in some other way, but Jacob's choices presented him with a different opportunity to work in this story beat. He changed his plan in the moment to fit the narrative and push it forward. And the lesson here is something that I've said before on this channel, and that is don't prep plots. Prep locations, events, and NPCs. This allows you to be more flexible and move things around when opportunities arise, usually based on the choices the PCs make. Also, Brennan is very good at the idea of failing forward. That is, when players fail a skill check, you don't have to let it kill a scene's momentum. For example, Alex's PC of Kingskin is a beefy crime boss. In one scene, he's talking with an underling, and in a moment of irony, he puts a hand on his underling's shoulder and says very gently, "Hey, you shouldn't have to feel pain." Brennan calls for a roll and Alex fails the roll. But instead of derailing the scene, Brennan has the NPC instead stab himself in the hand with his knife while shouting, "I only want to feel pain." It just turns the failure into a tense narrative moment, but the scene continues on. Or when Iffy as Vic Ethanol fails his drive check during a high-speed chase, he doesn't crash the vehicle or have the car stall out or something drastic that would permanently alter the scene's direction. Instead, the motorcycle pursuing him now deploys gun turrets. The scene continues, but the difficulty and tension have been raised. This is another way to fail forward. The next idea to come out of Never Stop Blowing Up is the rule of cool. In one episode, Allie has to make a brawl check and tries to bargain with Brennan to get an advantage. Allie asks to first make a sneak check, and then if that rolls well, add that number to the brawl check as a kind of sneak attack. Allie argues that this would be in line with the character. Brennan laughs and says, "So you want to add some 5e mechanics here?" But he does allow Allie to do it. Why? Because while it's outside of the rules, Allie isn't just asking for something ridiculous with no effort or risk. Allie asks to make a roll. There's a chance of failure. And sensing this is a potential dramatic moment, Brennan realizes there's no reason to say no here, because the focus of the rule of cool is to add fun and keep things moving. If there is uncertainty or drama attached to it, even better. You probably wouldn't do this in a hyper-crunchy game of DC-20 or 1st edition Pathfinder, but in this homebrewed rules-light game, why not lean into whatever feels fun in the moment? Because remember, the point of the game is to have fun, and if you're introducing mystery, escalating tension, following the narrative in the moment, and obeying the rule of cool, then the fun will blossom. And I think we can wrap it up here. I don't want to talk too much more about the show because I don't want to spoil it. It's definitely one of my favorite seasons of the show for sure. Seeing Izzy and Reika at the table together is pure Chaos Goblin energy, and Brennan rolls with it so well, it's always a joy to watch. Go check it out yourself. And until next time, I'm GM Jim. Now let a little chaos and fun into your life and your table.